Hey everyone, my name's Tomato Anus, also known as Minuscule Dongaloo, and this is an out-of-bounds speedrun of Portal. This run is performed by Can't Even, the current world record holder for this category, who also helped me write the script to make sure it's all as accurate as possible. If you'd prefer to watch either this run without commentary or Can't Even's current world record, they're both linked in the description. Also, I'm sure you can tell by the category's name being out of bounds, but glitches will be used in this run, so if that isn't your cup of tea, I've also linked the current glitchless record by Sidious in the description. If you've never played Portal or are somehow unfamiliar with the concept, it's a first-person puzzle platform game where you play as Shell, a test subject for an organization named Aperture Science. The goal of the game is to complete a series of puzzles that are framed as test chambers, with the entity in charge of our puzzles being a taunting AI named GLaDOS. Over the span of 20 test chambers and a short escape sequence, we're supposed to use portals to solve puzzles, navigate the world, and beat the game. The whole point of the game is that portals are hard to use, using them as a puzzle in and of itself, and over the course of the game, the player learns to think with portals, but as Can't Even put it to me, that's just the first level. When you take the complexity of portals and the thinking that goes into them, and combine it with the complexity of speedruns and the thinking that goes into them, then you've got something really interesting on your hands. So this speedrun is super short, and you're probably looking at the title of this video and the length of it and are already typing in the comments, the video is not 5 minutes, change the title, or bro really made a 35-minute video about how it takes 5 minutes. First off, the run is 5 minutes, not the video, and the video is explaining how it's done, so unless you expect me to show the run in full and explain what's going on in negative time, then yeah, the video is going to be longer than the run. This run is a special case where it's so short and so technical that explaining what's going on as it's happening isn't feasible. Normally I'd pause the run and use it as an interlude to explain the more complicated tech before it happens, but with this run being as short as it is, it'd really destroy the pacing, so instead I'm going to explain a lot of the tech up front before the run. But before we can do that, previously on Tomato Anus.
Great. Huh. This jacket must be a time machine.
Looks 'tis be, sire.
Oh, hey, Chicago guy, you're back already. Yeah, it turns out this jacket is a time machine. How long was I gone? Maybe like 2 minutes. Oh, so what are you up to now? Well, first, I'm gonna butter my toast. Then, I'm gonna jelly my toast. Oh, are you done? I thought you were going to say more steps. No, yeah, that was it. While you were gone though, I secured us a sponsorship with Ridge. Ridge sells products like compact wallets, key cases, phone cases, and more. Their wallets have over 50,000 5-star reviews with over 30 available colors and styles to choose from. I personally
Hey Minnesota
like
guy, did you install a bees drawer in our kitchen while I was gone?
Yeah, don't open that. I personally like how compact the wallets are and how comfortable they are in my pocket compared to my old leather one. I also like how easy it is to flip through my keys with the key case to the one I need, like this key to our house that used to be a Pizza Hut.
Wow, those wallets and key case look super durable. But can we get back to the bee drawer?
Yeah, and each one comes with a lifetime warranty. You can get 10% off your order today by going to ridge.com/anus and using code ANUS at checkout.
Wow, sounds like a great holiday gift. But about the bee drawer.
You betcha. Again, that's ridge.com/anus and coupon code ANUS for 10% off your order.
Real quick, big shout out and thank you to Mike, Mlug, and Uncrafted Name, the three of whom are scientists for the Portal speedrunning community. All three helped with the info in this script, along with gathering footage for the tech explanations we're about to go over, so thank you to you three for helping make this video possible alongside Can't Even. So getting into tech, the first thing we should talk about is movement. Bunny hopping is patched in Portal, where your speed gets capped at 225 units when you jump. For reference, your walking speed is 150 units. If you're constantly jumping forward, your speed will pretty much be set to 225, and if you're traveling at a speed above 225 when you land and jump, then your speed is immediately lowered to 225. The way the game lowers your speed to 225 is by adding speed backwards. It does this by detecting when you're going above the speed limit and applying speed opposite the direction you're facing. The only thing is that the game assumes you're moving in the direction you're facing, and by moving backwards and facing forwards, you can circumvent the speed limit, which is something called accelerated backwards hopping, or ABH for short. The math itself is a bit messy and convoluted and not worth going into, but in short, when you're ABHing, your speed increases exponentially in the direction you're moving, so you get up to high speed super quickly. To start an ABH, you first move and jump in the direction you'd like to head, and make sure you're either facing the opposite direction from the get-go or turn to face the opposite direction right after moving. After jumping, you need to let go of the directional key you were holding and begin holding crouch in its place, and just spam jump whenever you're about to land, and boom, you're ABHing. The crouching is necessary due to the fact that you have a lower speed limit when crouched, and that the game only adds speed backwards when it thinks you're going above the speed limit. Runners will typically have their scroll wheel bound to jump so they can just scroll a little before every time they land, but they can't scroll too fast or use something like free scrolling, otherwise the game ignores the inputs. Runners can also air strafe to steer and increase acceleration by using the A and D keys and moving their mouse in the opposite direction mid-air. So, similar to accelerated backwards hopping, a thing exists called accelerated forwards hopping, or AFH for short. AFH is a variant of ABH and is a bit more niche in application but follows the same logic. For AFH, you need a higher starting velocity than with ABH, and you need to be moving and facing the direction you want to go. By then beginning to hold S and jumping whenever you hit the ground, the game thinks you're traveling backwards at high speeds because you're moving fast and holding S, even though you're traveling forward because of your initial forward momentum. The game then tries to slow you down by adding speed forward, causing you to speed up faster and faster while moving forward. Also, similar to with ABH, AFH is done while holding crouch. That about covers movement, but speaking of controls, Can even has a button bound on his keyboard to make a save and instantly load it, which is referred to as a save load. Save loading is something that you're able to bind using the console in-game, and it's something runners use to do a couple glitches. Worth noting though, that save load binds are purely a quality of life inconvenience thing, and saving and loading instantly isn't necessary for what we're about to go over. Something interesting that happens is if you save load while you're stuck inside of a wall, you move down. Similarly, if you're just out of bounds in general and save load, the game moves you down, since it considers being out of bounds as being stuck in a wall. This is just a mechanic of the game that was inherited from Half-Life 2 as a fix for getting stuck when crouched. Anyways, in Portal, it moves you down, it's just something that the game does. With this being an out of bounds run, believe it or not, Can even is going to be going out of bounds from time to time, and one way to get back inbounds is by using this save load downward displacement, and using it for this is called save load clipping. More specifically, it'll be used when he's out of bounds on the ceiling of some levels. Since the game considers being out of bounds as being stuck in a wall, then by save loading on the ceiling, he'll be displaced downwards and back in bounds. Back to the game moving you down if you're stuck inside a wall. If you stand inside of a portal and do a save load, because you're standing inside of a portal, you are inherently also standing inside of a wall. Inside a wall is a place you shouldn't be allowed to exist in, and the game checks to see if you're inside a wall before checking to see if you're inside a portal. This means that if you save load while standing inside of a portal, then for a fraction of a second, you're slightly down through the floor before the game realizes you're in a portal and allowed to be there, and you get brought back fully in bounds. You can actually see the animation of the player bounding box, which is the yellow square, being partially in the ground here before the game checks the location of the bounding box and eventually realizes we're in a portal and we're instantly put back in bounds. If you're not in a portal though, and you're just somehow in a wall, it won't do this whole thing, you just go down a bit. Something else worth noting is that for the game to push you down like this, you need to be crouched, so for the tech we're about to go over, assume that Shell is crouched. So a moment ago I showed the animation of the player bounding box having its position checked so that the game knows where we're located. The game checking the position of our bounding box to put us in bounds is actually a function in the game called Find Closest Passable Space, or FCPS for short. It's an aptly named function because its goal is its name, to find the closest space that we're able to pass through that our character can inhabit. The conditions for FCPS to run are complicated, but for our purposes with this video, the game will sometimes run the FCPS function when the player is stuck, with its purpose being to get them unstuck. Let's say, for example, that our bounding box is traveling out of bounds. Every time our bounding box moves through this out of bounds space, its position is checked to see if any of it is in bounds. If none of it is, then the game moves the bounding box to the next location along its path, which is sometimes, but not always, in the direction that the player was previously moving. Once the bounding box is moved to its next position, the game again checks to see if it's in bounds at all. This process repeats until either part of the bounding box goes in bounds or until 100 iterations have passed, at which point the game will give up and do one of several things, such as dealing 10 billion damage to the player to kill them instantly. As soon as the game detects part of the bounding box is in bounds, then the game gives nearby vertices weight, and our bounding box's momentum is redirected towards any weighted vertices. This eventually brings the bounding box entirely in bounds, at which point the game snaps the bounding box into position against the wall and the player spawns in at the bounding box location. All of this iteration and the constant position checking from the time when our bounding box is first out of bounds to when our bounding box is fully back in bounds and we're relocated all takes place over the span of a tick while the game is save loading. So yeah, it pretty much happens instantaneously. FCPS itself is a huge rabbit hole of information, and if you'd like to learn more about it and how it came to be understood, then I highly recommend checking out a 2-hour video by Uncrafted Name that I've linked in the description. The thing about the FCPS function though is that just like getting a water cup at Chipotle, it's a system that's designed to be abused, which is exactly what speedrunners do with tech called FCPS abuse. Overhead view of FCPS abuse is that runners will abuse the FCPS function to end up in locations that they shouldn't be in. FCPS abuse comes in many forms, so to explain it, I think it's best we just go over an example from the run. Luckily, there's an example of FCPS abuse super early on in out of bounds runs in Chamber 01, which runners simply refer to as egg. Yes, the skip's name is just egg. And yes, that's how I pronounce the word egg. And also, for single-digit chambers, it's uncool to say the word chamber, so whenever you hear me say a number with a leading 0, I'm speaking about the chamber of that number. So 01 is laid out like this, with the entrance being here, the test chamber area being here, and the exit hallway to the elevator being here. Normally for this level, you're supposed to let automated portals cycle throughout various positions in the room, utilizing the changing portal positions to move about the room and put an Aperture Science weighted storage cube on a button before then using the moving portals to leave the level. Egg skips all this though. To set up Egg, Caneven is going to enter this room here, which is the room where the cube spawns, and is also a room that has a wall that runs parallel to the exit hallway with just a short gap separating them from one another. He's going to take the cube and place it right in front of the cycling portal location along the wall that's parallel to the exit hall, and then hop on top of the cube and crouch. He'll then position himself inside of the wall by standing inside the portal when it cycles through the room, and when he's inside, he's then going to jump and hold forward at the same time as when he save loads. Because he's crouched and in a wall when he save loads, despite him being in a portal, the game moves him down. Right here you can see his yellow bounding box is being out of bounds below a big purple bounding box, which is the bounding box of the cube. So this makes sense so far. We were crouched on top of the cube in the wall and save loaded, so we got brought straight down a bit. Currently our bounding box is stuck in the wall and the cube, and we're near a portal, which checks enough boxes for the game to call on the FCPS function to determine where we should be moved to. Well, on the first iteration of FCPS, like I just said, we're entirely out of bounds, so the game moves on to the next iteration. Caneven's bounding box has upward and forward momentum from the setup of him jumping forward when he's save loaded. This means that with each iteration of FCPS, his bounding box will move slightly forward and up through the space of the level until part of the bounding box is in bounds. This is going to reiterate until the bounding box crosses the gap between the room he was in and the exit hallway. Once some of the bounding box enters the exit hallway, the game gives the inbounds vertices weight, and his full bounding box is pulled in bounds. Now you may be asking why it was necessary to use the cube for this. This is because when our bounding box is traveling forward and up, the top of the bounding box actually clips in bounds in the room where he started. By having the cube where it is though, the bounding box actually passes inside of the cube rather than inside of the room, which the game reads as an invalid position since he's inside an item, so the bounding box isn't pulled back into the room and it can continue forward and up across the out of bounds gap and into the exit hallway. And before some of you ask, no, you can't just do it without the cube and start on the ground. If you do it without the cube, then because of the way FCPS is triggered in this instance, you're unable to get your bounding box low enough at the outset. So yeah, Egg lets you skip a lot of this chamber and go straight to the exit. A nifty example of FCPS abuse. We're not done there though. So when your bounding box enters the exit hallway and you relocate there, it actually appears for a second that you're located in a different spot. This is part of a different beast of its own, the save glitch. So when the developers were making this game, integrating portals with the Source Engine's physics system was a complex process, with them ultimately designing a system that creates temporary hybrid physics and bubbles around the portals. These areas are called portal bubbles. Essentially, the game treats physics differently inside of portal bubbles so that the game doesn't lag for half a second every time you shoot a new portal. So when you do Egg, you're transported from in front of the blue portal to the hallway behind the wall that the blue portal was on. Because he didn't leave the portal bubble normally, the game still thinks that he's in the portal bubble and he's still under the effects of the hybrid physics. The game thinking you're in a portal bubble but you're not is by definition what the save glitch is. Performing Egg actually isn't the usual way to get save glitch though, with runners typically setting it up by standing so that they're touching the edge of a portal in a specific way from behind and save loading. The save load combined with the positioning behind the portal makes the game think you're still in the portal bubble while you're actually outside of it. This setup is an extension of a glitch called edge glitch, but we're mostly going to focus on save glitch in this video. The easiest way to explain what save glitch really does is with an example. And thank you to mlug for the example he provided that I'm basing this example off of. So say we have a room that's laid out like this, and we have the blue portal on the wall here and the orange portal on the wall here. Additionally, imagine that there's a line that extends out from each portal on both sides, which I'll refer to as the portal horizon, with the area behind the portal horizon being behind the portal. The main property of save glitch is that when you set it up on a portal and then walk around beyond that portal's horizon, a ghost version of ourselves exists in addition to our body, and the ghost version is controlled by our inputs as well. An easy way to visualize how our inputs move the ghost is by creating a copy of the room and laying it on top of the original room, rotating and positioning it so the blue and orange portals are lined up with each other to sort of act as a doorway together between the rooms. This stacked view of the room is essentially a model of how portals work. Go in the blue portal, come out the orange portal. Go in the orange portal, come out the blue portal. This stacked view also helps model the movement of our ghost with the save glitch. So say we set up save glitch on the blue portal and then walk around beyond the portal's horizon and end up here. An easy way to figure out where our ghost self is located is by performing the same exact movement on the stacked version of the room, as if when we had passed the blue horizon, we came out of the red horizon of the orange portal into the stacked room. By then following the exact movement as it overlays from the original room, we can see where we end up in the stacked room. When we then undo the rotation and positioning that was required to stack the room with the portals touching, then we can see where exactly in the room we ended up. This is the location of our ghost self in the room. Essentially, when you're beyond the horizon of whatever portal you set up the glitch on, which I'll start referring to as your save glitch portal, then whatever your body's location is relative to the save glitch portal is the same position your ghost has relative to the other portal. Important to note though is that your body's relative position to the save glitch portal is from the perspective as though you had walked through the save glitch portal and are behind it, while the perspective for the relative position of your ghost is as if they had exited the other portal. Not only is the position of your body and ghost relative to the portals, but so is the direction you're looking. Say we're looking in this direction with our body. Then when accounting for positioning relative to the portals, the ghost body would be looking this way, with the direction it's looking changing when we look somewhere else with our body. Something else important to note is that with save glitch, it's possible to move your body so that your ghost goes out of bounds, which is something that runners take advantage of. It's also worth mentioning that while the examples I've shown so far on screen are in 2D, that this all takes place in the 3-dimensional maps of the game. This means there's a lot more going on positionally in the game than I can show with my current editing skills, but the principles of the glitch that we've covered so far transfer over to 3D as well. One big thing about save glitch though is that it only works and is set up when you don't walk through the portal, but just past it and beyond the horizon. If you go near enough to any portal, including the save glitch portal and including walking through a portal, then save glitch is cancelled and you have to set it up again. So to summarize so far, save glitch is often done by save loading while touching the exact edge of a portal and is by definition a case of the game thinking you're still in a portal bubble while you're not. When save glitch is active, you're playing the game from the perspective of your body, but there's also a ghost version of you moving and looking around in the exact same way you are, but just on the other side of the portal. You're able to get this ghost version of you to go out of bounds if you'd like, and going near enough to any portal cancels the glitch. There's of course much more nuance to save glitch than just these bullet points, but this is the big picture of what we've covered so far and what you need to know going forward. But what is save glitch actually good for? So the big thing about save glitch is that the ghost version of us actually has one property that's super important. It's the portal shot origin point. If you're save glitched and shoot a portal, you actually don't see them fire off from your body's portal gun, because they're being fired by ghost you. Speedrunners actually have a way to pull up their ghost's viewpoint in the corner of the screen, and not only can you see it as a visual representation of what's going on in-game with the two perspectives, but you can also see the portals firing there and not from our body's viewpoint. It may seem obvious, but pulling up this second view is not allowed during actual speedruns. So if our ghost can be easily made to be out of bounds, then with exact pre-routed setups, speedrunners can blindly fire portals across the out of bounds void to surfaces across the level or even by the exit. If they have the save glitch set up with the blue portal and then fire the orange portal across out of bounds to a surface near the exit, then all they'd have to do is walk through the blue portal with their body to be transported across the level to the exit. But wait, there's more. So say we have the same exact scenario I just said, with save glitch set up with the blue portal and the orange portal is fired to a different spot in the level by our ghost. Well, the ghost position is tied to the orange portal, so when a new orange portal is made across the level, then the ghost is repositioned to be in the correct position relative to the new orange portal location. This means that speedrunners can route complex pathways through levels, utilizing the fact that they can reposition their ghost to get better lines of sight to the exit by means of both moving their body to move the ghost to a better spot and also by shooting portals across the level. Using save glitch to do crazy shooty shenanigans like this is largely what the inbound speedrun of the game focuses on, since the ghost state is allowed to go out of bounds in that run as long as Shell's body and all portals stay in bounds. In fact, the main uses for save glitch kind of vary depending on the category, but we'll get to the main out of bounds use in a moment. So something that's utilized a lot in out of bounds runs is something called a seam shot. This is where the runner lines up their reticle in a super precise location and are able to shoot portals through seams in the environment that are created by a bug in the ray tracing algorithm. These typically have setups that require them to stand and look in exact locations. There's a good video by Xihao that's narrated by Mlug that goes in depth about seam shots that I've also linked in the description. Another piece of tech that's used a lot throughout runs is something called a Pika portal or a portal peek. This is where the runner peeks through a portal to gain line of sight to where they really want to place a portal and fire the same color portal as the one they're peeking through. They can then retreat back through the portal before their shot lands, letting them just walk through the portal in front of them to the desired location. This is most commonly used when you only have the ability to shoot one portal at the start of the game. Getting back to save glitch, something else that's worth mentioning is that when you're in a portal bubble, the game doesn't calculate collision for most things outside of the portal bubble. Here's a couple examples of where collision is calculated in-game while you're in a portal bubble, with the red and blue shaded areas having collision. As you can see, the exact geometry that you have collision with can sometimes be unintuitive. With save glitch being defined as the game thinking you're in a portal bubble when you're not, you might imagine that things not having collision far away from the portal might be of some relevance. And you'd be right to think that. As far as the out of bounds category is concerned, it basically boils down to if your save glitch portal is far away, then you can walk through walls and fall through floors and stuff. A very common implementation of this in the run is shooting a portal on the ground just the right distance away so that you can peek through walls while the floor below you still has collision. So the last thing that I've yet to explain with save glitch is actually what we started with. Remember 7 minutes and 47 seconds ago when I said that when you do egg, you're transported from in front of the blue portal to the hallway behind the wall that the blue portal was on, and then 8 minutes and 26 seconds ago when I said when your bounding box enters the exit hallway and you relocate there, it actually appears for a second that you're located in a different spot? When you do egg, you're transported from in front of the blue portal to the hallway behind the wall that the blue portal was on. When your bounding box enters the exit hallway and you relocate there, it actually appears for a second that you're located in a different spot. So to understand why it appears that you're located in a different spot, you first need to imagine that there are lines extending out behind your save glitch portal that are in line with the edges of the portal. If at any point while save glitch is active and you're walking beyond your save glitch portal's horizon and you cross within these lines directly behind your save glitch portal, then your perspective flips so that you view the game from your ghost's viewpoint. As long as you stay in this zone directly behind the save glitch portal, you'll be seeing the ghost viewpoint, but as soon as you step out from between these lines, you go back to viewing the game from your body's viewpoint. Also, fun fact, this area is typically referred to as the portal hole, which is a bit unfair because I usually get yelled at when I bring up my portal hole in public. Anyways, because with egg you're placed in the exit hallway directly behind the blue portal, which is the portal that the save glitch is set up with, then when you're relocated to the exit hallway, you view the game from the perspective of your ghost that's a bit in front of the orange portal. That is until you move just a bit towards the exit with your body, which exits your body from behind the blue portal and gets things back to normal. So yeah, there's my circumstantial explanation of egg and FCPS abuse. Just call me Columbo or something, I guess. Speaking of FCPS abuse though, one other quick example of it that'll be used a lot throughout the run is something called a vertical wall warp. Vertical wall warps are done by crouching in an out of bounds portal, jumping, and then save loading. This causes the player bounding box to travel upwards and for the player to be relocated above where they started. So a couple other small things to cover before we get into the run. First is that out of bounds runners play on an old version of the game, specifically build 3420. This is mainly because on this patch you're able to jump and move around while you're out of bounds, which is useful in a couple spots. In newer versions, you're frozen in place when you're out of bounds. Speaking of being out of bounds, something that runners often do to get back in bounds quickly is something called a portal quick re-entry, or PQR for short. First, you shoot a portal under the area where you want to re-enter, and for this example, say it's the orange portal you shoot. Well, by moving through the blue portal then and shooting another orange portal as you're passing through the portals, it causes for the orange portal under the map to disappear as you're passing through. Because you're passing through when the orange portal moved though, Shell's head is kinda clipped slightly above where the orange portal was, putting that part of Shell in bounds. The FCPS function is then called and we're brought back in bounds. Runners use PQR most commonly with shooting a portal underneath the elevator to exit the level, causing them to clip into the base of the elevator under the map, which is considered to be in bounds. By then jumping, they activate the elevator and get it moving, at which point they'll shoot a portal on the ground to head back to the level proper. Another thing to mention is that during the run, you'll notice the position, angle, and velocity of our character is displayed in the top right corner. This is from the CL show position command that's allowed for runners to use during runs, but is more on display and blown up for the curious viewer at home. The last thing I think I should mention before the run is the way levels are laid out. A lot of levels in Portal are actually 2 chambers in one, like there's multiple chambers in some maps. You'll load into a map in first chamber of that level, and when you ride the elevator to the next chamber, there's no loading going on and you're just moving to the next chamber. It's only when you finish the last chamber in a map and ride the elevator up that the game will transition you to the next map/level and chamber/pair of chambers. Because of this, we'll often be skipping multiple chambers at once based on how they're paired in the maps. Alright, with all of that covered, let's now get into the run. So we start in 00 where we wake up in a relaxation vault and typically would have a 57-second cutscene that we couldn't skip, but thankfully we have vault skip. Kant even grabs the nearby radio and places it within his grab range for when he jumps on the bed here, which traps him in place when the glass bed cover closes on him now. He pushes the radio into himself to gain a slight bit of speed, which you can see with his velocity value in the top right, and does a bunch of save loading. The combination of being stuck in the right spot, the radio giving him speed, and the save loads clips him straight through the glass into the chamber proper, saving 52 to 53 seconds. Fallout 4 needs one of those. After ABHing to the elevator, he's on his way to 01, which is where we get to eat some eggs. I mean, do egg. Perform egg. Fuck. Kant even is going to do the egg skip we talked about earlier with FCPS abuse. After a quick AFH around this corner and pressing his mouth against the glass, he turns around to wait for the blue portal to cycle location so he can enter the room with the Aperture Science weighted storage cube. As soon as the portal changes, he moves forward, grabs the cube, places it in front of the portal, crouches on it, and jumps forward while he spams save load. When he relocates to the exit, he can walk through the elevator doors after activating it since they don't have collision due to save glitch, and he stands on the edge of the elevator as it goes up. There he'll do a vertical wall warp just before the elevator reaches the level transition, which puts him out of bounds to start 02. This, in addition to all the egg stuff, lets him skip a cutscene and save around 20 seconds. In 02, he jumps to the top of the main room in the level thanks to being able to move while out of bounds on the old version of the game, and after save load clipping down to grab the portal gun, he sets up save glitch here. He breaks collision with this wall by firing a portal with his ghost so he can PQR and activate the elevator to 04 on a 14-second timer. He then save glitches again and shoots portals to get one to the top of the elevator, which he vertical wall warps with and save glitches on top of, and drops to the elevator to fire a portal in the shaft, with anything in the shaft transitioning between levels, meaning the blue portal is brought into 04 and save glitch is preserved. Save glitch is set up but inactive until the orange portal opens, and when it does, he shoots some portals to trigger the end of level dialogue as soon as possible and does a PQR under the elevator to activate it. He then sets up save glitch again to reach the final room of 05 where he save glitches again and ABHs to the elevator over a collision gap in the floor from save glitch. He hits the fizzler in the process, which returns his collision back to normal but keeps the portal shot origin point as if save glitch were active, and he looked up and shot a portal out of bounds with his ghost to give him no collision with the invisible doors that were blocking him from entering the elevator. He uses his position values in the top right to line himself up in an exact spot and angle to perform a seam shot on the edge of the ceiling to hit the bottom of the elevator to 08, which he PQRs under. Now that the elevator's moving, he does a seam shot to place a portal he'll portal peek from to shoot a portal on the wall of the elevator that he vertical wall warps with, putting him inbounds at the top of the elevator to 08, loading him straight into 08, which he's going to play exactly as the devs intended.
Please note that we have added a concept.
Ah yes, just like how we all beat 08. Here Kant even lines himself up precisely and changes his game sensitivity super high and hardware sensitivity super low so he can move his mouse exactly 1 unit, followed by changing his game sensitivity again to move another single unit to line up an exact seam shot. He times the seam shot as the orange portal opens, making it essentially a Pika portal to the elevator where he vertical wall warps. He hits a trigger for the elevator to leave in 5 seconds, hit another trigger for the elevator to arrive in 2 so we can actually ride it, set up save glitch, save loaded after the fizzler to reset some stuff so we can shoot where he's looking, which he did into the shaft so we could go through the elevator wall as it rose, and did again to save glitch preserve. When the orange portal opens and save glitch activates, he shoots in a specific spot which teleports him up and back, which is what's called a super warp. He shoots portals as he ABHs to not lose collision, and the trigger for this elevator causes the level to transition instantly, saving 14 seconds. Since he's out of bounds, he can shoot a portal under the next elevator and PQR into it right away, and then detour to get the dual portal gun before having to catch the elevator at the top, which he does by portal peeking. He save loads as he jumps through the portal, which moves him downwards out of the portal bubble, incorrectly exiting him from it, which gives him save glitch again. He shoots both portals into the shaft to reactivate and preserve save glitch so he can peek through this wall to shoot a portal below the next exit elevator, which he PQRs under to activate. He then shoots some portals out of bounds to the top of the elevator shaft as it rises, where he then save loads to vertical wall warp to get on top of the portal there, and save loads again to set up save glitch before falling down to a surface below, where he shoots the 2 portals in the shaft to save glitch preserve. As soon as the elevator goes up and the level transitions, he shoots a portal across the way to the bottom of the next exit elevator and PQRs again to activate it, followed by shooting a portal to the end and setting up for the next chamber by vertical wall warping and save glitch preserving. We just took care of 2 levels in a row in the same exact fashion. Shoot a portal to the end, shoot a portal at the beginning, PQR to trigger the elevator, and then set up for the next map, and the process as you saw it in Chamber 14 is what's referred to as under Elevator 3, and is exactly how all the levels are going to be from here until the end of Chamber 18. When you have 2 portals and you can do any glitch in the game, it's criminal how easy the game gets, at least on a conceptual level, and this stretch of levels just demonstrates that. So while Can't Even breezes through these levels, I'd just like to say I hope you're all doing well. If you aren't, then I'd just like to remind you that no matter what is going on, it cannot take away from you the fact that there is a tomorrow. You are not defined by any feelings of dread or despair or guilt, and they do not define the rest of your life. I promise you that those feelings are not permanent, and there are brighter days ahead. One day you'll look back and see how you're feeling right now is where you were and not who you were. Just please always remember that no feeling is final. Getting back to the run, in Chamber 18, Can't Even doesn't shoot to the elevator right away since he first has to activate the ending dialogue by hitting the trigger, and then jumps, crouches, releases, and quickly represses crouch after he lands to have the crouching hitbox but standing camera height so he can poke his head out of bounds through ceilings, and shoot a portal out of bounds so he can portal peek to the top of the exit elevator where he does another falling save glitch. His current portals are in the right position so that when the elevator starts going up, he can jump backwards through the elevator doors, save load, and shoot 2 portals in the elevator shaft to save glitch preserve and remove collision so he can drop under the elevator for the next level where he'll begin the escape sequence. First he shoots a portal across to the out of bounds bottom side of a floor and peeks his head through the portals to shoot another portal to an out of bounds ceiling. Going through this portal hits a trigger to load the next map, and he's then going to repeat this 2 more times as he navigates out of bounds here to be able to progress towards the GLaDOS arena. After transitioning to the final map here, he's going to shoot some portals with his ghost before doing 2 more save loads to vertical wall warp and save glitch, firing a blue portal near his ghost, then looking straight up to shoot a new blue portal with his ghost to reposition the ghost, and then shooting an orange portal with the ghost into the GLaDOS room. He drops in bounds and grabs a friend to bring to the fight and sets his friend up to shoot him, with some of the bullets missing him and hitting GLaDOS, causing her to drop the cores he needs to destroy. Can't Even collects the cores while the turret shoots GLaDOS, with each time it shoots her saving half a second due to how her dialogue is slightly faster on average when garbled. He sets up an edge glitch, which is like a stationary save glitch, and shoots an orange portal on the outside of the bottom of the incinerator, which lets him just portal the cores to hit a trigger there that deletes the cores instantly instead of having to wait for them to fall in the incinerator. The run officially ended when the last core was destroyed, and now we can dick around while the facility is destroyed. While this is going on, Can't Even decided to show off for you that by using all the tools he's been using so far in the run, he can actually get to the cake room via out of bounds super quickly. There he'll set up the weighted companion cube to poop back and forth forever. When we're then shown this room later on in the end cinematics, it'll still be pooping. Back and forth. Forever. Something worth mentioning that I'm sure a lot of you noticed, but some maybe not, is that throughout the whole run, Can't Even's portal gun was never showing on screen. This is because when he did egg and did a vertical wall warp, he got transported to the next level, but his player view model, which is the entity that represents his portal gun visually, did not. It got left in 01. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much on behalf of myself, Can't Even, Mike, Mlug, and Uncrafted Name. And also thank you so much to Can't Even for making this video possible by performing the run for it and providing much of the precursory knowledge for my understanding. And thank you to Mike, Mlug, and Uncrafted for building off of that and helping review the script and providing footage. This video would not have been possible without any of these 4, and I'm just so incredibly grateful for their help in sharing the run with the audience here on this channel, and I've linked their channels in the description. Additionally, if you'd like to learn more about Portal speedruns or Source Engine runs in general, then head on over to SourceRuns.org. It's a community-ran site dedicated to Source games, and they even have their own YouTube channel dedicated to showing off the crazy stuff they can do. Links are in the description. I'd also like to take a moment and give a big thank you to everyone who supports the Tomato Anus channel on Patreon. We're only a few away from hitting 350 total patrons, which is absolutely insane to me, and for crossing that milestone, patrons will be able to suggest runs that are included in a poll for them to all vote on and decide on a run to be covered in a future video, along with me doing a patron-only Q&A. We've done polls like this in the past, with winners being the Silent Assassin suit-only speedrun of Hitman 2016, the Any % run of Subnautica, and a third one that's due out in around 2 months. If these polls sound like something you'd like to participate in, then you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Not only will that get you access to the polls, but you also get access to videos early, ad-free videos, updates on videos as they're being made, and more. It's entirely unnecessary, yet so many of you choose to do it anyways, so thank you again to all of you who support. Lastly, be sure to check out the Tomato Anus Discord server. It's a super down-to-earth, welcoming, and supportive server where you can just chit-chat about whatever, or even share pictures of dogs wearing clothes. New faces are always welcome. That's all for this video though. This was an out-of-bounds speedrun of Portal. I've been Tomato Anus, and I hope you have an above-average day.